dance party over here.
I know. We're gonna like rock out. Keep it going. Lindsey, I'm so excited to talk to you again. Hello,
So
hello.
great to be here.
Yes, welcome. And everyone, welcome to the Social Video Playbook. This is our space where for the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about all things social video, all the yays, all the nays. We just want to give you fast insights from real leaders in the space that are joining to help build the ultimate social video playbook. We want businesses, companies, brands to understand what it means to lean into this era of social video and how do you digest the data? What are some of the ways that different companies, different people are going about utilizing what's out there, testing and understanding how it does or doesn't work for their industry, their sector, and their consumers. So I'm Elizabeth, head of growth at Viral Moment, host of the Social Video Playbook, and here with me is Lindsey Reeder. Lindsey, tell us about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. Second, I spend a lot of time on social media and watch a lot of videos, so it's really fitting. My name is Lindsey Reeder. I am the marketing director at Harlequin Trade Publishing. We often call it HTP Books. It's a division, an imprint of HarperCollins Publishing. So you've probably seen them on your books, all your different books with the spines. I work for the HTP division, which is really, really cool, especially having a last name that's actually called Reeder. So it works really well. And I've been at it for 18 years, which is crazy, both in the publishing sphere, but really marketing focused in the last 10 to 12 years of my career, specifically connected to social media, influencers, bloggers back in the day, and now all things TikTok and influencers and just integration into how to make books and people on Book Talk really excited about reading. So it's the coolest job. It sounds as cool as I'm making it sound. I love it so much.
That's amazing. Your background is fascinating. And I mean, I think publishing is just kind of a fascinating space anyways. And I've probably said this to you before, but publishing is kind of known as being like a slower to take industry. And you in particular are not allowed to do that anymore. You have to move at the speed of social, which is very, very fast. And you're doing an amazing job of it. I mean, we see how conversations take off across Book Talk and do all these trends. So very exciting.
It's been really exciting in the last probably even 2 years. I certainly like when 2020 hit, it was scary. We were like, oh, are people going to read? And yeah, we all stayed inside and we did puzzles and we read books and that was great. But everybody was on TikTok and that was like, oh, okay, well, they're not reading, they're watching TikTok. But then people discovered books and they were a younger demographic and it created this. Books were always there for sure, but I think people coming to them being younger was a huge opportunity for us. And now it's just changed the game. To your point, Elizabeth, everything is different. We call it a rapid publishing model. Publishing is traditionally quite slow. If you get acquired as an author, you'll write the book and then we'll say, okay, and we'll publish that in about 2 years. And that's the usual kind of standing. That is no longer the case. In fact, a lot of people have written something, whether it be self-pub or they've written something, and we will rapid publish it into, August of this year, which is, in 3-4 months. So it's just completely different, but it's required a different skill set. It's required smarter marketing strategies and data insights to ensure that we understand how we're getting it out to market effectively.
That's amazing. And actually allows me to get started on our questions, which I'm really excited about. So you have to do a lot and you've moved, like you even mentioned earlier, you're like, I worked with bloggers like way back when, and now those people are vloggers. But the big picture across social video, dive in. What are some of the biggest challenges that you are facing across social video right now?
Yeah, I think that ultimately is volume a good answer? I don't know. And I mean that in the most positive way because there's so much that it's hard to kind of sift through what's the movers and the shakers and what's happening. And today it's this book and tomorrow it'll be a different book. And it's harder, as I mentioned, the kind of traditional publishing method, which is that it was always kind of, romance books, thriller books, this. Well, now we've got romantasy, we've got dark romance, we've got all these new genres that TikTok has generated. So again, content creators getting really excited and they're kind of demanding more of the publisher. So then we in turn have to listen. But the volume of videos is a lot. So using different tools like Viral Moment and different things of that nature are always really helpful from where I'm sitting because sifting through it and actually seeing where the value lies is the hardest part. And like I said, I do spend a lot of time on my phone trying to understand, but it is really nice when I'm able to kind of like consolidate things and say, who's talking about this and how many people are talking about it. It's really helpful that way. And that obviously pertains to Instagram as well, and YouTube and all these other places. TikTok is just the hottest thing when it comes to publishing these days, especially.
Yeah. I didn't realize I actually just did these kind of backwards. So we're gonna hop around instead of doing these questions in order. We're actually talking about pain points right now. We just
Okay.
went through challenges, which I love. But what I want to do is also talk like, so you pose a challenge that there's so much volume of information and data out there. So how are you facing these challenges? Like what's been working for you and what hasn't been working for you in terms of like digesting all that volume?
Yeah, I think that it's more of just trying to understand where the real value lies, because you could watch so many different videos and you don't know if it's the best, use of time. I actually got the opportunity to go to an influencer event a couple weeks ago in LA, and it was fantastic, but watching these content creators actually work was so fascinating. So then it's like they're trying, like today it's, hosers yell or this different thing, like there's different things all the time, so they're like adapting to it. So again, the volume is, it's just so much, and I think some of the pain points just are trying to sift through how to find real value in the actual kind of content. And what I think is valuable versus another person thinking is valuable is very, very different. So oftentimes I have to get a pulse point of different people in different age demographics and things like that. I'm like, well, this is the thing, and they're like, oh, I don't like that at all. So I think it really, you have to look at it from a lot of different angles. I'm looking at it to get us to the bottom line, but oftentimes I think videos in general right now are creating awareness and conversation, and sometimes that's enough too, because it starts a bigger conversation, and we all know how marketing works, right, in terms of the funnel. So if you get a lot of people in and you get them excited, how do you push them through? That's what I'm always concerned about in my role. But when I'm working with my marketing managers and so on and so forth, they're really understanding, like, no, this is the thing that you need to care about. And so it's hard because it changes all the time.
Yeah, that is true. And probably per topic, and you have a lot of topics, you have a lot of books, you have a lot of content that just goes
Yes,
with looking and understanding content as well.
exactly.
If you had unlimited resources, I mean, Lindsey, like anything in the world, it's your oyster. How would you solve like this challenge that you've posed?
Oh my gosh, how would I solve for it? I think I would just have, in terms of resources, more, I'd hire a lot younger people. I think that we have a lot of great team members. I would just hire abundant amounts of them, because I think right now, oftentimes, when you're in any industry, you work really hard, right, to get to the quote unquote top. And then you get to the top, and you're either older and you don't understand like what the finger on the pulse is. So I think in working with my team, it's been really interesting understanding that they'll say, this is the show to watch. And then 2 weeks later, everyone's watching that show, or this is the song, or this is the artist. And that all comes from TikTok and video and YouTube and so on and so forth. There's someone that's the tastemaker. I think listening to people that in starts of their careers are always hard, because they have to, it's hard for them to, it's imposter syndrome 101, right? Because they're like not going to go into a VP or a director and say, this is the thing. But I spend all day trying to figure out where they go on the internet, and they spend all day going on the internet. And so I think if I could have unlimited things, I would hire more people to tell us what's the next thing, because like I said, it's just really hard and it changes all the time, like all the time. Like even like celebrities, if we acquire books, like, is this celebrity still relevant? Well, I think so, because I watched that show in the 90s, or that kind of stuff. So but they'll say, well, you don't know that person, you need a book by them. So it ranges. And I think it's really important to listen to a younger demographic and really understand what they're doing. So I think I've benefited a lot in my career by listening, by asking, and then speaking up when I'm saying, like, yeah, we don't get it, but this is actually the thing.
Yeah, like I'm not the Gen Z, but
Yeah,
they're there and they're actively buying. They've got buying power now. They're like making
that's
moves.
right. And
Yeah.
and you know what's more important? They know it. And I think that that's really exciting. And I don't mean that in a pretentious, like, or argumentative way. I mean that in a really lovely way. They understand the market. It was like I said, I got to simply watch people make content, and it was all about community and fun, and they understood, what consumers wanted. And I'm not coming at it from a consumer standpoint. I am. So my job is to bridge it, to make opportunity for us that makes sense and then go where the money is. But I also think that there's opportunity to really listen, learn, and the money will come eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're being authentic about the community you're trying to reach out to, they're gonna come follow.
Exactly.
So, because I so elegantly went out of order, we're gonna hop back and go. We went a little bit deep. We're gonna go a little bit wide, and we'll go back deep again. So, so your industry, publishing, is, like I said earlier, it's very fascinating. What do you think the number one shift in your industry is that you just like aren't ready for?
Oh my gosh, what's the number one shift? I think the expectations of these platforms, TikTok, social media, because you have to be a player in them. You can't just watch, you can't just acquire, you can't just say, hey, influencer, make me send video. You actually have to participate and sit at the table. But I think the expectation, we had a great presentation from a rep from TikTok last week. And they said, we would love it if you could make 30 videos like weekly. And like the reality of that is not actually feasible at this point. So I think that that's a big pain point in some ways, because I think it's hard in terms of those expectations. But in fact, followers aren't king anymore. It's content. And I think that if they're suggesting and they're saying to us, whether they're saying it to us, but they're saying it to everyone that's a business, saying you got to make content. And I don't know what'll stick, but maybe out of the 30, only one does. But if you only make two, it's not going to work. And lightning in a bottle is really hard. Like, I mean, everybody will sit there and say, but make it viral. And like, that is a joke. And we all say those things. But I think if you have 30 pieces of content and you're not precious about it, I think you have more of an opportunity to like land that lightning in a bottle, because you're not as attached to it. You're not spending hours kind of critiquing it and going through it. And I think that's where we trip ourselves up. So to watch other companies and to watch other industries kind of like participate in this, it's been incredibly impressive to watch them kind of adapt and learn. Like for me, it's always Oreo or Skittles, because they listen to what's happening and then they'll make content right away and they really get it and they understand. So I think that if I could, in a perfect world, just make tons of volume all day, it's just the reality of that is not actually feasible, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how is social video changing the way that publishing, or you can consider your books and your authors, each of these brands too? How are you considering that how is social video changing the way that they're making these decisions?
I think that right now, when I say rapid publishing, as I mentioned earlier, I think that right now the community, especially connected to books like Kindle, that are on Kindle Unlimited and ebooks and on your local library, all those different things, there's people are finding books in untraditional methods, right? And I don't know how they're finding them. I just know that they're finding them, and then everyone starts talking about them. And then we, being publishers, are like, well, how did they get where did they find out about these books? We didn't find this author. So oftentimes it's like our editorial team's looking for it, but I also think there's opportunity for us, again, to listen and like watch what's happening, and then in turn, then ingest it and make it a traditional pub. So oftentimes there's like a lot of opportunity to bring either a self-published author to the traditional side of it, or so on and so forth. So I think that, again, it's just really listening to the community to create opportunity for our business overall.
Yeah. And that leads me to a great new section on measuring success. Listening can be really hard. What is a common mistake that you notice is made when using or interpreting this vast amount of social video data?
Honest, such a good question. I think that ultimately the number one question in our company is like, yeah, but did it sell books? Did that video create conversion? And I don't know how to answer that, because I think that I can't do a thing and get a thing. And in some industries you can, right? But I think when it comes to video, I think it's naive to actually think like that. I think all of it is less about the conversion and the sales. And I think sometimes we fixate and focus so much on that. And I think that if we took a step back and we said, what are we trying to accomplish? And we actually fixated on the top part of it and said, the impressions we're actually going to reach are, and then we're okay and we're comfortable with that, then to move to the next part of it of like, then we're going to focus on this, then we're going to get them in the ecosphere, then we're going to turn them into loyal fans. I think that's the challenge. But I think you're either working at it oftentimes this is just my experience in marketing as a whole. You're looking at the top of the funnel, or you're looking at like, did we make the sale? And I don't think it's a natural progression often. So I think that if there's ways that I think we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and not getting the sale right away. And I think there's like a lot of opportunity again in like creating a ton of like interest, and from interest will come conversion. You just have to be patient.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we building now to social video shift it to like top of funnel?
Exactly.
That's a
Exactly.
really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What what would you say is the most important things that brands should be measuring if it isn't like the direct top to sale?
I think that brands should be measuring more on, I think that influencers as a whole are a term that get used. Oh yeah, some influencer marketing. But I think when I mean measuring, I think that there's quality and value that are coming from influencers in a way that which I don't think we've even scratched the surface, if I'm being honest. And I'm not even talking just from a publisher perspective. I think there's so much value in, somebody who has a really good understanding or an authentic connection with their followers to say, I read this book or I bought this thing and you should too, because I know as a consumer, oftentimes if they bought a hat, I'm going to buy the same hat. Or like people are so loyal to actual people versus brands. And I think that if we spent more time really understanding influencers and their value, and again, for me, a lot of that is connected to video. And I think video in particular it feels so personal when I watch, even if I see somebody with 25 Instagram stories, I sit down there and I get real comfy because I'm like, okay, they're going to tell me about their whole day. I treat it as if I'm like watching a TV show now versus actually watching said TV show. And I think that value is something that we can't, it's untapped at this point. And I think agencies have come in and I think people have been really, really smart. And I think we've all connected it. But I think there's a difference of really understanding what an influencer's ability is to do. And if somebody really gets how to like make 30 pieces of content a week, because again, incredibly hard to do, and they do it and they do it well and they connect with their audience, then that's gold. And I think like I'd be willing to bet more money, more effort to giving them the opportunity to advocate for said book or said product to kind of get that going. It's just harder because we all fall into our traditional methodologies, which is like, yep, we're going to do social advertising. We're going to do Reddit. We're going to do Facebook. And we're going to like, we all just kind of like, we do what we're used to doing because that's what we're supposed to do. But I think if we took a campaign and went all in on just influencers or one influencer and said, this is going to be your baby too, like, I think it'd be really interesting. I just haven't seen it yet.
I love that. That's you're gonna be the one to do it. I definitely I've seen the stuff that you put out. It's amazing. I bet that will happen. Speaking of kind of like getting leaders to do things, what's one underrated insight that leaders in your field actually should be acting on right now?
I mean, I think I've said it earlier. I say it all the time. Listen to your team, listen to your people. I think that they are so smart. And I think oftentimes we're just conditioned to like, we have the answers. And I think by proxy, they think, well, I'll go to my boss because my manager will have the response I need to do. I think if we didn't work as such a top down versus a bottom up, I think industries would be really different. I think that everything that anybody between the ages of 22 and 30 right now are doing is going to be what's next. I think people are smarter, quicker, and faster. And I think we need to start listening more effectively and say, well, let's give it a go and be comfortable with the uncomfortable, like I mentioned earlier. I think that that's so imperative now. And I think that would be my biggest piece of advice because there's so much value in what they're saying and what they're like, oh, I don't care about this book at all. And I'm like, okay, well then why are we pushing it to all these? And they're like, well, because that's the one we chose. So I think that there's a lot more we can do. And I think even from an editorial perspective, it's been interesting because we're getting smarter books. We're being more intentional when it comes to, diversity and inclusion. I think that there's just so much more. And I think there's a lot we can learn. But I often think sometimes like generations are pitted against each other. And we fall into those buckets real quick because it's like, well, when I was that age, we had to hustle. And I think they're just hustling in a different way. And I think even the word hustle is like faux pas. We do not say that anymore. But I think there's just so much we can learn if we just talk to each other and actually acted on it.
Yeah, that's it's a really good insight for leaders. What would be a common assumption about social video that you've seen that's just completely wrong? Someone says it and you're like, oh no, girl,
That it's
not how
easy
that
to
works.
do, that it's easy to make. I have watched people make content. I have watched people, I have been in said content. Whenever I'm in it, it never works. But I have a friend who's an influencer. He's an amazing guy. And I filmed something with him and he was like, okay, and cut. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cut. Like it was incredible. And then he spliced it together and he pushed it together. And like, I'm sure it wasn't like that difficult for him, but if I had to do it or if any of us had to do, I'd be like, oh my gosh. So I think that like actual content creation and getting it right and doing it effectively is really hard. And I never discredit how amazing some of these like, and I often even think about, do they walk around with like a notepad with ideas, because they always are so topical, they're so on trend, and that's really hard to do. So I commend people that are able just to get like really comfortable on video and do it. And I'm in awe of it. Like it's fantastic. Like if you're a content creator and you're making, again, like if you have big followers, that's great. But if you can't get consistent fun content, then people won't stay. So that longevity to actually build that is really hard. So it's really impressive to watch. I certainly would never be like, that's easy. It's not easy.
It's so much thinking and like
Yeah.
on the spot thinking too. It is very impressive.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm just like watching it actually happen. I was like, this is insane in the best way.
We've mentioned earlier that, if the world was your oyster and you could have anything you wanted with no caps on it, but I'm going to put a little bit of a parameter on it. If you were to get just one thing this year that would make social video easier for your business and your role, what would it be?
Oh, I think that I think this is such a silly question, but I think that, or silly answer, but I think that it would be to understand, if I could just get I think that AI is so exciting and I appreciate when they always like put it at the top, but I would love to see separate of AI, which is all words. Again, I'm a word person. I get that makes sense, but it would be really nice if like video could be incorporated into their responses and say like, these are the 3 videos you need to know. If I'm like, I can't get this, like, I can't, how do I make this pasta dish or what have you? And if you just pop that in instead of like all words, because like I read all the time, it'd be great to just have video at my disposal like that. I think that's obviously in terms of search on TikTok and things, you can do that. But I think from an AI generative standpoint, I don't see that a lot. I just see words and I'm like, no, just give me the video I need. That's the one video I need, which doesn't come through often.
What's
And
the
even on
one?
TikTok, like I get sucked into the rabbit hole, right? They'll give you 5 videos about pasta and you're like, I just want to see this one. Like, so I think that if they're going to make my life easier, get me the thing I want, but video so I can watch it.
Make it faster, make it what I
Make it
want. Go
faster.
on.
That's my real, like I'm just like, yeah, I think that AI is incredibly scary, certainly scary to a publishing company, because we would never want to ingest anybody's manuscripts or words into a program. But I think it can be, from a marketing perspective, really exciting and provide a lot of opportunity. So I know that's faux pas to say in a publisher, but I like AI. I think it's amazing. But yeah, just integrate video a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. And we will have a separate conversation about how AI is affecting publishing. I think that is fascinating. We have so much to talk about, but we only have time for one more question. It's a fun
Sure.
question. It is, you've been in this field for a long time. You've literally seen the whole gamut of how we're evolving, and now into AI, you just mentioned too. From navigating the shift into social video, what's one lesson that you've learned that you can share that you wish more people understood?
Oh, wow. In connection to videos or just in general?
In general, like you've been in this field and you've watched it evolve into this new social video era, and of course now like an AI era as well, since we just talked on that topic too. But yeah,
Yeah.
what's like a lesson that you've learned from navigating this whole course?
I think that for me, at the end of the day, it's about conviction. I'm 41 years old. I've been in it a long time. And I read a lot, but I also spend a lot of time on video. I spend a lot of time looking at data. I try to understand what's coming next. And I think the number one thing, especially when you're talking to anybody in any corporation, is that when you deliver said news, oftentimes I find like people are like, well, I saw this thing, but I think there's a difference of saying it that way versus, I was watching this TV show and it is everything and everyone's talking about it online. I think there's opportunity. Like, I think that like the delivery of information needs to be a bit stronger. That took time. If you've been in a company for a long time like me, or a business like me, it takes time to kind of find your footing. But when you get a seat at the table, you got to make sure you use your voice. And I think that on the way to the table, how I got to the I'm sticking with my table analogy, but on the way to the table, I used my voice to kind of like have opinions and a point of view, and different moments where I said like, this is the thing, and they were like, well, we want to know more, why don't you come to this meeting, why don't you come to that meeting. It just provided a lot of opportunity. So I think that there's a difference of knowing something and sharing it versus saying this is the thing, and maybe it's not, and that's okay. No one's going to hold you to that. They're just going to say that it seemed like you knew what you were talking about. So the fake it till you make it thing is very, very real. And I think that for me, I still have imposter syndrome. I still am like, oh, is that the right answer? But oftentimes, no one, like I said, holds my feet over the fire and says that you have to be right about that. Not at all. I think there's just a lot of opportunity of like, you know more than you think. So a lot of people in the room need to hear it. And I think that as long as you have people that let you speak, speak.
Yeah, I love that. And you're there for a reason. They hired you because they want your insights. They want, your brain,
Yeah,
your power, your
exactly.
knowledge to come to that table. So speak up. It's beautiful.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that. Well, that is all the time we have at the Social Video Playbook. Everybody can follow Lindsey on LinkedIn. Her link is here. We're just at Lindsey Reader, kind of like read, but without the A, and you'll get there. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's always so wonderful talking to you. Your insights are very, very powerful, and I'm so excited to see what you all do next.
Aw, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.